The sound of shattering glass cut through the evening air. Screams erupted as five black-clad figures stormed through the fractured window frame of the Crystal Summit. Their tactical precision spoke of military training, their purpose singular and deadly, their target already chosen. 3 hours earlier, the world had been a different place. The Crystal Summit restaurant occupied the entire 62nd floor of Blackwell Tower in Manhattan, its panoramic windows offering a godlike view over the city. Tonight, crystalline chandeliers spilled golden light across white tablecloths. The gentle notes of a jazz quartet mingled with the soft clink of crystal and silver. The air was perfumed with truffle oil and exclusivity, the kind of place where the minimum reservation was measured not in minutes, but in millions. In this rarefied air, Richard Blackwell reigned supreme. At 58, Blackwell carried himself with the confidence of a man who had spent a lifetime bending the world to his will. 6'2", with a full head of salt and pepper hair swept back from a commanding brow. His custom Tom Ford suit, midnight blue, draped perfectly over shoulders, still broad and strong. His steel blue eyes continuously assessed, calculated, judged. The years had carved lines of authority around his mouth and eyes, but age had only refined his predatory grace. As CEO of Blackwell Industries, Richard commanded an empire spanning 5 continents. His latest conquest, Westridge Manufacturing, was nearly complete. One last signature awaited. One last nail in a coffin, 15 years in the making. The Patek Philippe Calatrava watch on his wrist caught the light as he raised his bourbon. A family heirloom passed from his father. White gold case, black alligator strap, a simple elegance that whispered old money and power. Richard occasionally ran his thumb across its face, an unconscious habit when deep in thought. The timepiece served as both companion and conscience. "The board vote is scheduled for tomorrow at 9, Charles Prescott said, dabbing his mouth with the linen napkin. As Richard's attorney for 20 years, Charles had overseen dozens of acquisitions. "The remaining Manning family shares won't matter once we have majority control." Richard nodded, savoring the aged bourbon. "And Robert Manning?" "Still fighting, but he can't stop it now." Charles leaned forward, lowering his voice. "He's been making some concerning statements. Something about revealing the truth about his father's accident." The muscles in Richard's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. To most, his face remained impassive. "James Manning died in a car accident 15 years ago. Ancient history. Robert seems to think there was more to it." Richard set down his glass, his eyes drifting to the window. The city lights blurred momentarily as his mind traveled back through time. His thumb found the watch face again, circling its perimeter. "There's always more to everything, Charles. That doesn't change the outcome." Samantha Reed approached their table with practiced grace. At 34, she moved with a fluid economy of motion, no energy wasted. Her black uniform was pristine, her chestnut hair pulled back in a simple ponytail. Unremarkable by design, her face with high cheekbones and clear hazel eyes possessed a quiet beauty she deliberately downplayed. She had learned long ago the value of being underestimated, of being invisible. "Would you gentlemen care for another round?" Her voice was pleasantly modulated, her smile professional and brief. Richard looked up, his eyes meeting hers for the first time that evening. Something flickered in his expression, a momentary curiosity. "How long have you worked here, Miss Reed?" "Samantha Reed." She maintained her smile. "8 months, Mr. Blackwell." The question seemed innocent, the kind of small talk the wealthy occasionally offered service staff when feeling magnanimous. But Sam recognized the subtle assessment beneath it. His eyes were too sharp, his attention too sudden. "You seem familiar somehow." His voice carried the precise tone of casual interest that powerful men cultivated. "I have that kind of face," Sam replied, her expression pleasant but revealing nothing. "People often think they've seen me before." The words hung in the air between them, a conversational dance with layers beneath. Layer 1, simple exchange between customer and server. Layer 2, Richard testing, probing for information. Layer 3, both hiding secrets neither could afford to reveal. "Another bourbon," Richard finally said, dismissing her with a nod. As Sam moved away from the table, her eyes swept the restaurant in a pattern ingrained after years of training. Exits, sight lines, potential weapons, threats. Old habits from a life she tried to leave behind. The restaurant was 3/4 full, mostly finance types, tech entrepreneurs, and old money. The usual Crystal Summit crowd. 8 months ago, she had reinvented herself. Samantha Reed, career waitress, no interesting history, no remarkable skills. Just another invisible service worker in a city of millions. The perfect cover, the perfect disappearing act. But tonight, something felt wrong. The black Ford Transit van parked directly across from the restaurant's entrance hadn't moved in 45 minutes. No deliveries at this hour, no logos on its side. The man smoking near the service entrance had been there too long, his attention too fixed on the building, his posture too alert. Michael Freeman Richards, head of security, had left his post at the bar 15 minutes ago without returning. His glass of club soda still sat there untouched. Small details, nearly invisible threads. But Sam saw patterns where others saw coincidence. It was why she had survived Istanbul when her entire team hadn't. Her heartbeat quickened slightly, the muscle memory of danger. 7 years earlier, Istanbul had been a nightmare of betrayal and blood. Operation Blackstone meant to extract a high-value asset with critical intelligence on Russian arms dealers. Sam had sensed something wrong from the beginning, warned her handler. But the mission proceeded. When the ambush came, it was from within. Someone on her team had sold them out. 3 CIA operatives dead. Sam badly wounded but alive, crawling through the darkness with a bullet in her shoulder and the asset's blood on her hands. The agency had conducted its investigation, officially cleared her name. But the whispers remain. The sideways glances, the suspicion. Someone had betrayed the team and Sam had survived. Convenient coincidence or something darker? After 2 more years of desk duty and psychological evaluations, Sam had made her choice. She disappeared, leaving behind the agency, the suspicion, the life of shadows and secrets. She would build something new, something normal, something safe. But safety was an illusion she could never fully believe. Sam returned to the bar, retrieving Richard's bourbon. As she turned, her gaze caught on a small photograph that had fallen partly out of Richard's suit jacket draped over his chair. An old picture worn at the edges. 3 people on a fishing boat. A younger Richard, another man about his age with kind eyes, and a teenage girl with a bright smile. The back of the photo visible: James Richard and Sarah Montauk, 2003. Something in Richard's eyes when he'd studied her face. Recognition, suspicion. Sam's mind raced through possibilities as she delivered the bourbon. "Your drink, Mr. Blackwell." Richard nodded without looking up from his conversation. "The Manning acquisition finalizes tomorrow. Send a statement to the press emphasizing our commitment to retaining most of the workforce." The usual reassurances. Charles made a note on his tablet. "And the special provisions we discussed. Already arranged. The patents will be transferred to our Cayman subsidiary before the ink is dry." Richard took a sip of his fresh bourbon. James always was too trusting with his intellectual property. The way he said the name James with a complex mixture of fondness and regret caught Sam's attention. She retreated with practiced invisibility, but her mind was working, connecting fragments. The photo, the conversation, the name Manning, the van outside. Near the kitchen, Sam glanced through the small circular window in the swinging door. A brief flash of movement caught her eye. A man in server's uniform she didn't recognize was moving through the kitchen. The staff all knew each other. No new hires this week. Her pulse quickened. Training kicked in. Assess, analyze, act. Sam moved to the service hallway, stepping into the employee locker room. From her locker, she retrieved her phone and sent a quick text to an old number she'd promised herself she'd never use again. No response needed, just insurance. Then she slipped the phone into her pocket and moved toward the kitchen. Richard stared into his bourbon memories, surfacing unbidden. James Manning's face as they'd fished off Montauk, laughing about college days, sharing dreams for their companies. James had been brilliant but naive, too trusting, too ethical for the cutthroat world they inhabited. The watch on Richard's wrist had been a gift from his father on his 21st birthday. "A man who doesn't value time doesn't deserve success," his father had said. Richard had valued time all right, valued it enough to betray his friend when the opportunity arose. Valued it enough to use insider information to orchestrate the hostile takeover that had destroyed James's company 15 years ago. He hadn't anticipated James driving his car off that bridge, hadn't wanted that outcome. But business was business. The world belonged to those who seized opportunities. The slim leather wallet in Richard's inner pocket contained more than credit cards and cash. Behind a hidden compartment, he kept an old photograph. James himself and James's daughter Sarah on that fishing trip. A reminder of what his ambition had cost. A private penance. He checked his watch again. 8:42 p.m. 17 hours until the final Westridge board vote. 17 hours until James's legacy was completely his. Charles was still talking acquisition details, but Richard's attention had drifted to the restaurant window. Something about the waitress nagged at him. Something in her eyes. Too observant, too controlled. Not the typical server in an upscale restaurant. As a man who'd made billions reading people, Richard trusted his instincts. He scanned the restaurant for Michael Freeman. His security chief was nowhere to be seen. Unusual. Freeman was typically vigilant, almost to a fault. "Excuse me," Richard said, cutting off Charles mid-sentence. "Where's Freeman?" Charles glanced around. Perhaps the restroom. Richard felt a prickle at the base of his neck. The sixth sense that had saved him from corporate ambushes and bad investments countless times. Something wasn't right. Sam moved through the kitchen with purpose, eyes tracking the stranger in the server's uniform. He was at the back exit, speaking quietly into what appeared to be a concealed radio. Not restaurant staff, not with that military bearing and situational awareness. A memory flashed. Istanbul. The same alertness in her teammate Alexei before he betrayed them all. The same controlled scan of surroundings. Sam ducked behind a prep station as the man turned. Through the stainless steel shelving, she watched him open the service door a crack, peering out into the alley. A signal to someone outside. The pieces clicked into place. Multiple threats. Coordinated attack. Imminent danger. Her hands itched for a weapon that wasn't there. 7 years since she'd held a gun. 7 years since she'd fought for her life. She'd promised herself never again. But promises were luxuries in moments like these. Her eyes scanned the kitchen. Knives, heavy pots, improvised weapons if needed, exit routes, defensive positions. Near the dessert station, Sam noticed Michael Freeman slip through the door to the alley. Richard's security chief moving with furtive purpose. He wasn't checking the perimeter or securing the area. His posture spoke of complicity, not protection. The betrayal clicked into place. Inside job. Freeman had been turned. But by whom, the answer came in fragments of conversation she'd overheard throughout the evening. Westridge Manufacturing, Manning family, acquisition, old grudges, and fresh opportunities for revenge. Sam moved to one of the line cooks. "Joey, did you see that guy in our uniform, the one I don't recognize?" Joey glanced up from plating a deconstructed cheesecake. "Management sent him over. Said he's helping tonight because we're short-staffed. But Maria's been giving him the stink eye because he keeps going in and out the back." Sam nodded casually, maintaining her cover. "Thanks, just making sure." She needed to get back to the dining room, warned Richard. Whatever her feelings about wealthy men who destroyed companies for profit, she couldn't stand by while violence unfolded. Too many innocent people in the crossfire. Sam reached for her phone to call the police when the world exploded into chaos. The front windows of the Crystal Summit didn't merely break, they disintegrated. A concussive blast from a sound cannon turned the floor-to-ceiling glass into a deadly crystal rain. The deafening sonic attack overwhelmed the diner's senses, dropping them to their knees, hands clasped over bleeding ears. 5 figures poured through the shattered windows like black ink spilling across the white tablecloths. They moved with military precision, tactical gear, obscuring their faces, weapons held at the ready. Not raised to fire, but present as unmistakable threats. One carried a device that Sam recognized immediately. Signal jammer. Cell phones dead. No calls out. No digital lifelines. Screams filled the air as patrons scrambled under tables or froze in terror. The tactical team ignored them, moving with singular purpose toward one table. Toward Richard Blackwell. Richard had reacted instantly to the blast muscle memory from executive protection training kicking in. He was already moving toward the kitchen, pulling Charles with him, when 2 of the tactical team intercepted them, weapons raised. Richard Blackwell. The voice from behind the tactical mask was distorted but commanding. "Sit down. This can go easily or very, very hard." Sam flattened herself against the wall, near the kitchen entrance, mind racing. The restaurant had dissolved into controlled chaos. The attackers were professionals, their movements disciplined and coordinated. Not a random attack, not terrorists. This was targeted, personal. Her CIA training screamed at her to remain invisible, to escape, to save herself. But something deeper, something she thought she'd buried in Istanbul, pushed back against that instinct. Innocent people would die. She could stop it. She had the skills. She had the knowledge. She had a choice to make. In the pocket of her server's apron, her fingers closed around a corkscrew. Not much of a weapon, but in trained hands, deadly enough. Richard stood tall, his face a mask of cold defiance as he faced the armed intruders. "You're making a terminal mistake." The leader of the tactical team stepped forward. "The only terminal mistake was made 15 years ago when you betrayed James Manning." "Sit down, Richard." Something flickered in Richard's eyes. Recognition, understanding, fear. "Robert," he breathed the name barely audible. The leader didn't confirm or deny, simply gestured with his weapon toward the chair. Richard slowly sat, his mind calculating odds, possibilities, escapes. His hand instinctively moved to his watch thumb, tracing its circumference in that unconscious habit. Sam watched the scene unfold from her position by the kitchen. The immediate threat wasn't mass casualties. This was personal, targeted at Richard. The tactical team was isolating him, securing him. An extraction, not a massacre. Her eyes tracked to the back of the restaurant. The fake server had positioned himself near the emergency exit. Freeman was nowhere to be seen. The pieces were falling into place. Freeman had disabled the security systems. The fake server had secured the back exit. The tactical team had made their dramatic entrance. All to take Richard Blackwell. Why? The answer lay in those fragments of conversation. Westridge Manufacturing, the Manning family, a 15-year-old betrayal, and tomorrow's final acquisition. Sam had a split second to decide. Walk away. Not her fight, not her problem. She'd left that life behind, or act. Risk everything. Risk exposure, risk her carefully constructed new identity, risk her life. The weight of her past pressed down on her. Istanbul, the betrayal, the deaths, her escape from that world. At the table, Richard's eyes swept the restaurant, looking for help, for options. For a moment, his gaze connected with Sam's. Something passed between them. Recognition, a silent plea. The powerful man suddenly vulnerable. Sam made her choice. She slipped into the kitchen, moving with purpose to the nearest fire alarm. A distraction was needed first. Chaos to cover her movements. Her hand closed around the alarm and pulled. Sirens wailed through the restaurant, adding to the pandemonium. Sprinklers activated, drenching everyone. The tactical team hesitated momentarily, their attention divided. It was all the opening Sam needed. She moved through the kitchen, grabbing a chef's knife from the magnetic strip. The weight felt foreign yet familiar in her hand, like greeting an old friend you'd hoped never to see again. The fake server at the back exit turned at the sound of the alarm. Sam was on him before he could react. Her movements were fluid, economical, precise. The skills hadn't faded, merely hibernated. The knife handle struck his temple with surgical precision. He crumpled without a sound. She dragged him into the walk-in freezer, securing the door. 1 down, 5 to go. Through the circular window in the kitchen door, Sam assessed the situation. 2 men guarding Richard, 1 monitoring the main entrance, 2 covering the panicking crowd. Their attention split between controlling the situation and dealing with the unexpected fire alarm. She needed more advantages, more confusion, more weapons. Richard Blackwell sat rigid in his chair, mind racing beneath his composed exterior. Robert Manning, it had to be. The son of James, grown now, but carrying his father's grudge. Richard's thumb traced the watch face again, an unconscious tell betraying his inner turmoil. The sins of the past never stayed buried, it seemed. The leader of the tactical team leaned in close. 15 years, Richard. 15 years I've waited for this moment. Richard's face remained impassive. Whatever grievance you think you have, this isn't the way to address it. Grievance, the distorted voice carried a bitter laugh. Is that what you call destroying my father's company? Using insider information to orchestrate a hostile takeover? Driving him to suicide? James's death was a tragic accident, Richard said, his voice steady despite the gun pointed at him. An accident you caused. The leader's voice cracked with emotion. And tomorrow you'll finish what you started, taking the last piece of Westridge from our family. Unless someone stops you. Outside, distant sirens wailed. Someone had managed to call the police despite the signal jammers. The tactical team leader gestured to his men. "We're moving out. Bring Blackwell." Two men grabbed Richard by the arms, hauling him to his feet. Charles Prescott started to protest, but was silenced by a weapon pressed to his chest. "Stay here if you want to live," one of the men growled. As they began moving Richard toward the back of the restaurant, the kitchen door burst open. A serving cart rocketed out at high speed, slamming into one of the tactical team members, sending him sprawling. In the confusion, Sam emerged from behind the cart, moving with lethal grace. She engaged the nearest attacker, her movements a blur of precision strikes. The knife in her hand flashed once, finding the gap in tactical gear at the shoulder, not a killing blow but disabling. The man screamed, dropping his weapon. Sam kicked it away, already moving toward the next target. She was outnumbered and outgunned, but she had surprise and superior training. Her body remembered what her mind had tried to forget: the balance points, the vulnerabilities in human anatomy, the psychology of combat. Richard stared in disbelief as his waitress transformed before his eyes. Gone was the unassuming server. In her place moved a weapon made flesh, her attacks precise and devastating. The tactical team leader shouted orders, trying to regain control of the situation. "Take her down. Secure the package." Sam ducked behind an overturned table as one of the men fired a shot. The bullet splintered wood inches from her head. She rolled, coming up with a heavy silver serving tray as a makeshift shield, deflecting a second shot before closing distance. The tray edge struck the shooter's wrist, sending his weapon clattering across the floor. Her knee found his solar plexus, doubling him over. A precise strike to the base of his skull sent him into unconsciousness. 2 down, 4 to go. The leader recognized the threat level had changed dramatically. "Fall back to extraction, point B, move." They began dragging Richard toward the kitchen, toward the service exit where Freeman was waiting. Sam pursued, but the remaining tactical team members laid down covering fire, forcing her into cover. Through the kitchen, out into the service corridor they moved, Richard struggling against his captors, mind reeling from the revelation of his waitress's hidden skills. Who was she? CIA, FBI, private security? He wasn't aware of. Sam followed at a distance, looking for another opening. The service corridor led to the loading dock where undoubtedly a vehicle waited. She needed to act before they got Richard outside. The fire alarm had triggered an evacuation protocol. The service elevator was locked down. The tactical team now moving with greater urgency as police sirens grew louder, headed for the emergency stairs. Sam took a parallel service passage, her knowledge of the restaurant layout allowing her to move ahead of them. At the stairwell junction, she prepared her ambush. As the door burst open and the tactical team emerged with Richard, Sam struck from above. A fire extinguisher discharged directly into the face of the lead captor, blinding him. She dropped from her perch on the pipes running along the ceiling, taking down a second man with her falling weight. Richard, sensing opportunity, drove his elbow back into the solar plexus of the man holding him. Years of tennis and boxing had kept the CEO in excellent shape despite his age. His captor's grip loosened enough for Richard to break free. The team leader raised his weapon toward Richard. "Don't move. This isn't how I wanted this to go, but I will shoot you if necessary." Sam launched herself at the leader, knife aimed at his gun arm, but she'd miscalculated his training level. He sidestepped, using her momentum against her, sending her crashing into the wall. Her knife clattered away. Pain exploded across her back. A rookie mistake. She'd been out of the field too long. Her body wasn't responding with the same reflexes it once had. The leader stood over her weapon, trained on her head. "Who are you, private security government?" Sam remained silent, eyes calculating distances, angles, possibilities. Richard had retreated several steps toward the main corridor, but his escape was cut off by the remaining tactical team member. The elevator dinged, arriving at their floor. The doors opened to reveal Michael Freeman, weapon drawn. "Freeman," Richard called, relief washing over his face. "About damn time." Freeman's gun raised, pointing not at the tactical team, but directly at Richard's chest. "Sorry, boss. Time for a career change." The betrayal registered on Richard's face like a physical blow. His security chief, his trusted protector for 8 years. "You too, Freeman." "What did they offer you?" Freeman's smile was cold. "More than you ever would, and the chance to watch you finally get what you deserve." The tactical team leader nodded to Freeman. "Get him to the van. We're behind schedule." As Freeman moved toward Richard, Sam made her move. Her legs swept out, catching Freeman at the ankles. He stumbled his shot, going wide, striking the wall near Richard's head. Sam was up in an instant, driving her shoulder into Freeman's midsection, sending both of them crashing into the elevator. They grappled for control of the weapon. Freeman was larger, stronger, but Sam had desperation and training on her side. The tactical team leader shouted, "Enough! We need to move!" A gunshot echoed in the confined space of the hallway. Freeman's eyes widened in shock. He looked down to see blood spreading across his chest. The tactical team leader stood with his weapon raised, smoke curling from the barrel. "Loose ends," he said coldly. "Grab Blackwell. Now." As the remaining team members moved to secure Richard again, the stairwell door burst open. Police tactical units poured through, weapons raised. "NYPD, drop your weapons on the ground now." Chaos erupted. Gunfire exchanged. Sam dove for Richard, tackling him to the floor, shielding him with her body as bullets flew overhead. When the shooting stopped, two of the tactical team members lay wounded. The others, including the leader, had vanished down another service corridor. Richard looked up at Sam, his eyes wide with shock and questions. "Who are you really?" Sam helped him to his feet as police secured the scene. "Someone who made a choice tonight. The right one, I hope." She turned to leave to disappear before questions could be asked, identities revealed. Her cover was blown. Her quiet life as a waitress over. She needed to vanish again, create a new identity, a new story. Richard caught her arm. "Wait, please." Their eyes met, a current of understanding passing between them. Two people with secrets, two lives built on carefully constructed foundations now cracking beneath them. "They'll be back," Sam said quietly. "This isn't over." Richard's hand went to his watch thumb, circling its face. "No, it's just beginning." In the distance, more sirens wailed as police and emergency vehicles converged on the crystal summit. The night had been shattered like the restaurant's windows. And with it, the carefully constructed lives of both the billionaire and the waitress who had saved him. Neither knew that the true depths of their connection, the true complexity of the web surrounding them, was still hidden, waiting, like a predator in the shadows, patient and deadly. The first act in a drama 15 years in the making had just concluded. The second was about to begin. Flashing police lights painted the Manhattan skyline in rhythmic strokes of red and blue. Outside Blackwell Tower, a phalanx of NYPD vehicles created an impromptu barricade. Paramedics tended to the wounded. Detectives interviewed shell-shocked diners. And somewhere in the chaos, Robert Manning had vanished like smoke. Inside a makeshift command center in an executive office, one floor below the Crystal Summit, Detective Marcus Rivera studied Samantha Reed with professional suspicion. 30 years on the force had taught him to recognize when someone was hiding something. The waitress sitting across from him was hiding everything. "So you expect me to believe you're just a waitress who happens to know advanced combat techniques?" Rivera's voice carried the gravel of too many cigarettes and not enough sleep. Sam maintained eye contact, her posture relaxed but alert. Her story was simple. Former military, Army, 4 years of service. Skills maintained through martial arts training. Self-defense instinct when the attack happened. Nothing more. "Believe what you want, detective. I saw people in danger and I acted." Rivera leaned forward, his weathered face inches from hers. 3 trained mercenaries down. One with a punctured shoulder that missed the brachial artery by millimeters. Another with a concussion delivered at precisely the right point to incapacitate without permanent damage. "That's not self-defense, Ms. Reed. That's specialized training." Sam shrugged, wincing slightly at the pain in her back. "I got lucky." Across the room, Richard Blackwell stood with his attorney providing his statement to another detective. His Tom Ford suit was torn at the shoulder, spattered with blood that wasn't his own. Yet he maintained the same commanding presence, his voice steady as he recounted the attack. His eyes occasionally drifted towards Sam, curiosity and gratitude mingling with something deeper. Questions forming, connections being made. Rivera followed his gaze. "You know what's strange? Blackwell's head of security sells him out. A highly trained tactical team tries to abduct him the night before he acquires West Ridge Manufacturing. And a waitress with combat skills just happens to be working his table." The detective's eyes narrowed. "That's a lot of coincidences for one night." Sam's expression revealed nothing. "Life is full of coincidences, detective." Not in my experience. Rivera closed his notebook. Don't leave town, Ms. Reed. We'll have more questions. As the detective walked away, Sam took inventory of her situation. Her cover was compromised. Her face would be on security footage and police reports, possibly the morning news. 7 months of carefully constructed anonymity destroyed in a single night. She needed to disappear again. But first, she needed answers. Richard finished his statement and approached Charles Prescott, hovering anxiously at his side. Ms. Reed, Richard extended his hand. I believe I owe you my life. Sam accepted the handshake, noting the firm grip, the steady gaze. A man accustomed to control, momentarily shaken but rapidly regaining equilibrium. Just doing what anyone would do, Mr. Blackwell. A small smile touched the corner of his mouth. We both know that's not true. He gestured to a quiet corner of the room. A word in private. Charles began to protest, but Richard silenced him with a look. The two moved away from the bustle of police and paramedics. Who are you really? Richard asked quietly. Sam considered her options. Full disclosure was impossible. Continued deception, pointless. A partial truth might suffice. Someone who recognized a professional kidnapping when I saw one. Richard studied her face, searching for tells for weaknesses. Finding none. Former military, something like that. His thumb found the face of his watch, circling it unconsciously. You could have walked away. Most would have. Sam's gaze hardened. I've seen what happens when people walk away. I don't make that mistake anymore. A moment of understanding passed between them. Two people familiar with difficult choices, with regret. The man leading the team, Richard said. He knew me, knew about James Manning, about events 15 years ago that very few people were privy to. Robert Manning, Sam replied. James's son, at least that's what you called him. Richard's expression remained neutral, but his eyes betrayed surprise. You heard that. I hear many things people don't think I'm listening to. Richard nodded slowly. Robert Manning has convinced himself that I'm responsible for his father's death, that I somehow caused the car accident that killed James. His voice remained steady, but Sam caught the slight tension in his jaw. He's mistaken. Sam said nothing, letting the silence stretch between them. An old interrogation technique. Create a vacuum, people rush to fill it. Richard glanced at his watch again, that unconscious tell. James was my friend. His death was tragic. A terrible accident. Nothing more. The words rang hollow. A practiced lie told so often it almost sounded like truth. Almost. Sam had spent years reading people, detecting deception. Richard Blackwell was lying. Not about everything, but enough. They'll try again, she said, changing the subject. Professional teams don't abandon objectives this easily, especially when it's personal. Richard nodded. I'm aware. My security team is compromised. Freeman wasn't acting alone. His eyes met hers. I find myself in need of someone with your particular skill set. The offer hung in the air between them. Sam felt a familiar pull, the world she'd left behind reaching for her once more. I'm a waitress, Mr. Blackwell. We both know that's not all you are. He reached into his pocket, extracting a business card. Heavy stock minimalist design, just his name and a private number. When you're ready to discuss what you really are, call me. My offer will be generous. Sam took the card, studying it. What makes you think I'm for hire? Richard's smile was knowing. Everyone has their price, Ms. Reed. It's just a matter of finding the right currency. He turned to leave, then paused. Thank you again for tonight. Whatever your reasons. As Richard rejoined Charles, Sam slipped the card into her pocket. Her instincts screamed caution, distance, escape. But deeper currents pulled at her. Questions unanswered. A mystery unfolding. The mention of Istanbul by one of the attackers when he'd recognized her moves. How did he know who else knew she was here? Outside the building, Sam pulled her jacket tighter against the chill autumn air. Police had taken her initial statement, but she'd need to report to the precinct tomorrow for a more detailed interview. Time enough to decide her next move. Her apartment was compromised now. Too risky to return. She'd established emergency protocols when she'd moved to New York. A go bag stashed in a 24-hour storage locker. Cash. Alternate ID. The essentials for a quick disappearance. As she walked toward the subway, a black Escalade pulled alongside her. The rear window lowered, revealing Richard Blackwell's face. Get in, Miss Reed, please. Sam hesitated, assessing the situation. The driver was new, not Freeman. No immediate threat detected. Why would I do that? Richard's expression was grave. Because while we've been giving statements, someone accessed your apartment. My security team just reported it. The revelation sent ice through her veins. Her sanctuary violated. Her carefully constructed life unraveling faster than anticipated. How do you know where I live? I make it my business to know things, especially about people who saved my life. He pushed the door open. We can continue this discussion somewhere secure, or you can take your chances alone. Your choice. Sam weighed her options quickly. Going with Richard meant answers, resources, protection. Going alone meant freedom, but vulnerability. She slid into the Escalade. The interior was luxury personified. Butter-soft leather seats, climate control creating a perfect microclimate, privacy screen separating them from the driver. Richard handed her a tumbler of amber liquid. Bourbon, you look like you could use it. Sam accepted but didn't drink. How did you find my address so quickly? Charles is very efficient. Richard studied her over his own glass, though he found surprisingly little else. No social media, no employment history beyond the Crystal Summit, no rental history before your current apartment. Almost as if Samantha Reed didn't exist before 8 months ago. Sam remained silent. Your technique when fighting, it wasn't standard military, not even special forces. Richard took a measured sip of bourbon. It looked like CI, specifically their close-quarter combat program developed for deep-cover operatives. The specific knowledge surprised her. You seem well-informed about intelligence agency training methods. I have diverse investments, some in private security firms founded by former agency personnel. His eyes held hers. They recognized their own. The Escalade moved smoothly through Manhattan traffic heading uptown. Sam maintained situational awareness, tracking turns, noting the landmarks. They were heading toward the Upper East Side. Where are we going? My residence. It's secure. We can speak freely there. Sam tensed. I haven't agreed to anything yet. No, you haven't. Richard set down his glass. But you're curious about Robert Manning, about why he wants me dead, about why one of his men recognized you and called you Istanbul. At her slight reaction, he nodded. Yes, I heard that. I miss very little, Ms. Reed. The Escalade turned into a private underground garage beneath an elegant pre-war building on Fifth Avenue facing Central Park. The kind of residence where apartments started at $20 million. The vehicle stopped near a private elevator. Welcome to my home, Richard said as the driver opened the door. One of them at least. The penthouse occupied the top 2 floors of the building. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered panoramic views of Central Park and the Manhattan skyline. The interior was masculine elegance personified. Rich wood, leather, modern art that Sam recognized as museum quality. A Rothko, a small Pollock, a Basquiat. But it was the security system that caught Sam's attention. State-of-the-art, multiple redundancies. The kind of protection usually reserved for heads of state. Richard moved to a wet bar, refreshing his drink. Make yourself comfortable. We have much to discuss. Sam remained standing. Starting with how one of Robert Manning's men knew about Istanbul. Richard nodded, acknowledging the priority. That puzzled me as well. A concerning connection. He gestured to a leather sofa. Please sit. I don't intend to loom over you like an interrogator. Sam chose a chair instead, positioned to see both the elevator and the staircase to the upper level. Old habits. Robert Manning has been obsessed with me since his father's death. Richard began settling into the sofa. James was my closest friend in college. We started our companies around the same time, friendly competitors for years. His expression softened with reminiscence. James was brilliant, an engineering genius. His patents formed the foundation of Westridge manufacturing. Sam listened, watching for tells, the circling thumb on the watch face, the slight tightness around the eyes when he mentioned James's brilliance. 15 years ago, our industries were changing rapidly. Consolidation was inevitable. Chinese manufacturing was undercutting everyone. James refused to see the writing on the wall. Richard sipped his bourbon. I made a business decision, a hostile takeover of key divisions of Westridge. It was nothing personal, just business. But James took it personally. Richard's jaw tightened momentarily. Yes, he did. Our friendship didn't survive it. He set down his glass. 3 months later, he drove his car off the Tappan Zee Bridge. The official ruling was accident, but rumors of suicide persisted. Sam watched Richard's face closely. And you've spent 15 years acquiring the remaining pieces of his company. Tomorrow's board vote would complete that process. As I said, business, nothing personal. But it was personal. Sam could see it in the tension around his mouth, in the way his thumb circled his watch when he spoke of James. Robert believes differently, Sam observed. He believes you caused his father's death. Robert was 25 when James died, old enough to understand business, but young enough to need someone to blame. Richard's voice carried practiced detachment. He spent 15 years building a case against me, gathering what he believes is evidence of corporate espionage, insider trading, securities fraud, all to stop tomorrow's acquisition. And when legal means failed, he turned to kidnapping. So it seems. Richard leaned forward. What concerns me more is how his team knew about you, about Istanbul. Sam's expression revealed nothing, but her mind raced. The connection to Istanbul meant someone from her past was involved, someone who knew about the mission, about her. I need to know what happened there, Richard pressed, if only to understand what we're dealing with. Sam weighed her options carefully. Disclosure meant vulnerability. Silence meant operating without crucial context. A calculated risk was necessary. Istanbul was an operation gone wrong, a CIA extraction that turned into an ambush. 3 operatives killed, the asset eliminated. I was wounded but escaped. Each word measured, revealing only the essential. Someone betrayed the team, someone with inside knowledge of the mission parameters. Richard absorbed the information, and you were blamed. Suspected, never charged. The investigation was inconclusive. Sam's voice remained neutral, belying the bitterness beneath. But in that world, suspicion is enough. My career was effectively over. So you disappeared, became Samantha Reed. She nodded once, confirming without elaborating. And now someone from that world has found you. Richard's analytical mind was connecting pieces, forming patterns. Someone working with or for Robert Manning. The implications were disturbing. If someone from her CIA past was involved with Robert, the connection ran deeper than a simple kidnapping plot. It suggested resources, connections, possibly even government ties. This is no longer just about a corporate takeover, Sam said. Robert has allied himself with dangerous people, people with their own agenda. Richard rose, moving to the window. The city stretched before him, a glittering empire he had helped shape. I need to know who I'm dealing with, Ms. Reed, the full picture. I could say the same to you. Sam's voice hardened. You're not telling me everything about James Manning and what happened 15 years ago. Their eyes met in the reflection of the glass, a silent acknowledgement of mutual withholding. We all have our secrets, Richard said finally. The question is which ones are relevant to our current situation. Sam stood, joining him at the window. Robert Manning called you a murderer, said you were responsible for his father's death. Those aren't the words of someone merely angry about a hostile takeover. Richard's reflection revealed a momentary crack in his composed facade. Pain, guilt, regret, gone almost as quickly as it appeared. James and I were more than business associates. We were like brothers. His voice carried the weight of old grief. The takeover was business. His death was a tragedy I never intended, but one you feel responsible for. Richard's thumb found his watch face again, circling it. James called me the night he died. He'd been drinking, distraught, said he'd discovered something I'd done that was unforgivable, said he was going to expose me. His voice grew distant with memory. I told him to calm down, to sleep it off, that we could discuss it in the morning. The pain in his voice was genuine. There was no morning for James. Sam processed this new information. What had you done that was unforgivable? Richard turned from the window, his expression closing like a vault. That's not relevant to our current situation. But it was. Sam could feel it. The past and present intertwined, old sins birthing new consequences. Robert Manning didn't just want to kidnap you, she said. He wanted something specific. Information, confession, something to validate his 15-year crusade. Richard moved back to the bar, pouring another drink with practiced precision. What he wants doesn't matter. What matters is stopping him before he tries again. He turned, studying her. I need someone I can trust. Someone with your skills, your background. You don't even know me. I know enough. His eyes held hers. You could have let them take me. Could have walked away. You didn't. He raised his glass slightly. That tells me more about your character than any background check. Sam felt the familiar pull, the offer of purpose, of using her skills again, of stepping back into a world she understood. I left that life for a reason. And yet tonight, when it mattered, you embraced it again. Richard set down his glass, approaching her. You can continue hiding, waiting for them to find you. Or you can help me end this. Your choice. The offer hung between them. Sam knew the rational decision was to walk away, to disappear again, create a new identity, a new life. But something deeper pulled at her. Questions unanswered, a mystery with her own past somehow entangled in it. And the undeniable truth that in the moment of crisis she had felt more alive than at any point in the past 7 years. I need access to everything, she said finally. All information about Robert Manning, about James, about the takeover 15 years ago. No redactions, no sanitized versions. Richard nodded. Done. And I work independently. I'm not your employee. I'm a consultant with full autonomy. Agreed. One last condition. Sam's eyes hardened. No more lies. If I discover you're withholding something relevant, I walk. Immediately. Richard extended his hand. You have my word. As they shook hands, Sam knew he was still hiding something, something important. But so was she. Trust would come gradually, if at all. I'll have Charles draw up the paperwork in the morning, Richard said. For now, you can use the guest suite upstairs. It's secure and you'll need rest. Sam nodded, suddenly aware of the exhaustion seeping into her bones. The adrenaline crash after combat was familiar but unwelcome. She needed sleep to process the plan. One thing before you go, Richard said. The photograph you noticed earlier, in my jacket. Sam tensed slightly. She hadn't mentioned seeing it. Richard smiled faintly. As I said, I miss very little. That photo was taken 12 years before James died. The girl was his daughter, Sarah. She'd be 29 now. Is she involved in this too? I don't know. I've had no contact with her since her father's funeral. A shadow passed over Richard's face. She blamed me too. Perhaps with more justification than Robert. Sam filed the information away. Another thread to investigate. Another piece of the puzzle. Get some rest, Ms. Reed. Tomorrow will be challenging for both of us. As Sam climbed the stairs to the guest suite, her mind pieced together fragments of the emerging picture. Robert Manning on a crusade against Richard. A mysterious connection to her past in Istanbul. James Manning's suspicious death. And Richard Blackwell, a man of power and secrets, caught at the center of it all. The guest suite was elegant but minimalist. King bed, ensuite bathroom with marble fixtures, floor-to-ceiling windows with electronic privacy glass. Sam checked for surveillance devices out of habit. Finding none, she allowed herself to relax marginally. Her phone vibrated, a text from an encrypted number she recognized. Eyes on you. Careful who you trust. Istanbul not forgotten. Sam stared at the message ice forming in her veins. Someone was watching. Someone who knew her. Someone from her past. The game was more dangerous than she'd thought. Morning arrived with the soft glow of dawn over Central Park. Sam had slept fitfully, her mind processing, planning, anticipating. She'd risen before sunrise using the suite's private gym to work through combat forms, restoring muscle memory, preparing her body for what might come. A soft knock at the door announced Charles Prescott's arrival with paperwork and information. The attorney's demeanor was cool, professional, with an undercurrent of suspicion. Mr. Blackwell has authorized full disclosure of the Manning situation, he said, placing a leather portfolio on the desk. You'll find everything there, including the confidential corporate records. Sam nodded. And the board vote? Postponed in light of last night's events, security concerns. Charles straightened his bespoke suit. The police are still searching for Robert Manning and his team. They won't find them, Sam said with certainty. Men with that training, don't leave trails unless they want to. Charles studied her with thinly veiled curiosity. Mr. Blackwell seems to have great confidence in your abilities, Ms. Reed. I hope it's not misplaced. The implied question hung in the air. Who was she really? What was her agenda? My only concern is preventing another attack, Sam replied evenly. Everything else is just noise. Charles nodded, not entirely convinced. Mr. Blackwell would like to see you in his study when you are ready. With that, he departed, leaving Sam with the portfolio. She spent an hour reviewing the documents. Corporate filings, acquisition records, news articles about James Manning's death, police reports ruling it an accident, financial records showing the gradual disintegration of Westridge Manufacturing after James's death, and Blackwell Industries' systematic acquisition of its assets. The picture painted was of a ruthless but legal corporate takeover. Nothing criminal on the surface, nothing that explained Robert Manning's extreme actions. But Sam had spent years reading between lines, finding the hidden narrative beneath official records. And something wasn't adding up. She found Richard in his study, a wood-paneled sanctuary with walls of books and a desk that had likely witnessed decades of power brokering. He was examining something on his computer, expression grave. You need to see this, he said without preamble, turning the screen toward her. A news article from the morning edition of the Wall Street Journal. The headline stark against the white background, Blackwell Industries under federal investigation for securities fraud. Sam scanned the article quickly. Anonymous sources claiming evidence of insider trading related to the Westridge acquisition 15 years ago. SEC involvement, potential criminal charges. The timing is not coincidental, Richard said, his voice tight with controlled anger. Robert has made his next move. Sam processed the implications. He's attacking your reputation, your company, hitting you where it hurts most. This goes beyond reputation. If these allegations gain traction, stock prices will plummet. The board could try to replace me. Everything I've built could be at risk. Richard's thumb found his watch face, that unconscious tell more pronounced under stress. Is there any truth to it? Sam asked directly. Richard's eyes met hers, calculating, assessing how much to reveal. Corporate acquisitions operate in gray areas, Ms. Reed. I've always remained on the legal side of those lines. Not a denial, not quite. Another partial truth. Robert must have evidence, or something he believes is evidence. Sam turned back to the article. This level of confidence suggests more than mere suspicion. James kept extensive records, business journals, corporate documents, personal notes. Richard's expression darkened. If Robert has accessed those, he might believe he has something incriminating. But you don't think he does? Richard stood, moving to the window overlooking the park. What I think is that perception matters as much as reality in my world. The mere suggestion of impropriety can be devastating. Sam studied his back, the rigid set of his shoulders revealing more tension than his controlled voice. We need to find Robert, understand exactly what he has and what he plans to do with it. Agreed. Richard turned back to her. But Robert isn't our only concern now. Your text last night suggests someone else is involved, someone from your past. Sam had debated whether to share that information. The fact that Richard knew about the text meant he had indeed been monitoring her communications. Not surprising, but a reminder to tread carefully. Someone who knows about Istanbul, who might have connections to the original betrayal. Sam's voice remained steady despite the implications. If they're working with Robert, this goes beyond corporate revenge. Richard nodded, processing. Two separate agendas converging. Robert's vendetta against me. Someone's interest in you. We're being played against each other. Used. The realization crystallized as Sam spoke it. Someone wanted you to find me. Wanted us connected. The study fell silent as they both considered the implications. A larger game at work, themselves as pawns rather than players. A soft chime from Richard's computer interrupted the moment. He glanced at the screen, his expression changing subtly. What is it? Sam asked. An email, anonymous. He turned the screen so she could see. Sent to my private address, one very few people have. The message was simple. Ask her about Alexei Volkov. Ask her who really betrayed the team in Istanbul. Sam felt the blood drain from her face. Alexei Volkov, her team leader in Istanbul. The man she trusted with her life. the man presumed to have betrayed them all before being killed in the ambush. Richard watched her reaction closely. Who was Alexei Volkov? Sam's mind raced. Someone was deliberately exposing her past, driving a wedge of suspicion between her and Richard before trust could form. My superior on the Istanbul operation. Her voice remained steady through force of will. He died during the ambush. And did he betray the team? The question hung in the air, heavy with implication. Sam met Richard's gaze directly. That was the official finding. His death made him a convenient scapegoat. The bitterness she'd suppressed for years edged into her voice. I was never convinced. You suspected someone else. I had doubts, nothing concrete. Richard studied her, weighing her words against her reaction. Someone wants me to question your loyalty, to wonder if you were the betrayer, not this Volkov. The accusation was implicit but clear. Sam felt old anger rising, the familiar burn of being suspected, distrusted. If I betrayed my team in Istanbul, why would I survive? Why would I be here now helping you? Her voice carried the edge of barely controlled emotion. Think it through, Blackwell. Someone is manipulating both of us. Richard nodded slowly, the tension in the room gradually subsiding. The question is who, and why now? Before Sam could respond, Richard's phone rang. He checked the display, frowning slightly. Sarah Manning, he said quietly. Sam's eyebrows rose in surprise. James's daughter, Richard nodded, answering the call on speaker. Sarah, this is unexpected. The voice that emerged was female, tense with underlying fear. Richard, I need your help. Robert's gone too far. He's going to get himself killed. Where are you, Richard asked, exchanging a significant look with Sam. Somewhere safe for now, but I can't stay hidden much longer. Sarah's voice trembled slightly. Robert's gotten involved with dangerous people. People who are using him to get to you. What people, Sarah? I don't know exactly. Former intelligence operatives, mercenaries, people with agendas beyond helping Robert get justice for Dad. A pause filled with tension. They don't care about the truth. They just want to use Robert's vendetta for their own purposes. Sam moved closer to the phone. Sarah, this is Samantha Reed. I work with Richard. Do you know the name Alexei Volkov? A sharp intake of breath on the other end of the line. How do you know that name? It's complicated. Did Robert mention him? Not Robert, the others. They talked about Istanbul, about unfinished business. Sarah's voice dropped almost to a whisper. They said something about the real traitor finally being exposed. Sam and Richard exchanged looks, the pieces beginning to align. Sarah, we need to meet, Richard said. Somewhere secure. I can send a car for you. No, I can't risk being followed. There's a place Dad used to take us, the boathouse in Central Park. Tomorrow, 10 a.m. Sarah's voice grew urgent. Be careful, Richard. These people, they're not just after money or revenge. They want something else, something bigger. The line went dead. Richard set down the phone slowly. Central Park is visible from this window. She could be watching us right now. Sam moved to the window, scanning the par with experienced eyes. If she is, she's not alone. This feels like a setup. Perhaps. Richard's expression was troubled. But Sarah was never like Robert, never consumed by hatred or revenge. If she's reaching out, she's genuinely concerned. Or being used as bait. Sam turned back to him. Either way, we need to be prepared for whatever's waiting at that boathouse. Richard nodded his thumb, finding the watch face again. The question remains, what connects my history with James Manning to your mission in Istanbul? What's the thread that ties these separate paths together? The answer remained elusive, hidden in the shadows of their respective histories. But one thing was becoming clear. The past was no longer past. It had resurfaced, carrying with it old secrets, old betrayals, and new dangers. For both Richard Blackwell and Samantha Reed, the reckoning had only just begun. Central Park emerged from the morning mist like a verdant oasis amidst Manhattan's steel and glass. The boathouse nestled alongside the lake, its Victorian architecture a testament to a bygone era. At this early hour, only a few joggers and dog walkers populated the surrounding paths. The perfect setting for a clandestine meeting, or an ambush. Richard Blackwell stood near the water's edge, outwardly calm, despite the tension coursing through him. He wore casual attire, dark jeans, a cashmere sweater, and a lightweight jacket, clothing selected for mobility rather than status. The Patek Philippe still adorned his wrist, his thumb occasionally brushing its face in that unconscious gesture. From her position 30 yards away, Sam surveyed the area through specialized sunglasses, their embedded optics scanning for threats. Her athletic wear and running shoes blended perfectly with the morning park crowd, a lightweight Gore-Tex jacket concealing the ceramic knife strapped to her forearm. "Southeast corner near the willows," she murmured into her discreet communication device. "Man in a gray tracksuit has circled the area twice. Deliberate pattern." Richard maintained his position, not acknowledging the information except for a subtle shift in stance. Understood. Their preparation had been meticulous. Sam had spent hours the previous day establishing contingency plans, escape routes, and counter-surveillance protocols. Richard had surprised her with his adaptability, absorbing tactical instructions with the same focus he likely applied to corporate acquisitions. 10 o'clock, Richard said quietly. No sign of Sarah. "Wait," Sam replied, her attention drawn to a woman approaching from the northern path. "Possible contact." The woman moved with nervous energy, glancing repeatedly over her shoulder. Late 20s delicate features, framed by dark hair pulled into a messy ponytail. She wore jeans boots and an oversized jacket that could easily conceal a weapon. "It's Sarah," Richard confirmed, his voice carrying a complex mixture of emotions. Sam watched the woman approach Richard, noting her body language. Tense but not overtly hostile. Fearful rather than threatening. "I'll maintain position," Sam said. "The man in the tracksuit has changed direction. Moving toward your location." Richard nodded imperceptibly, turning his attention to Sarah as she reached him. "You came alone," Sarah said, her voice carrying across Sam's earpiece. "As we agreed," Richard replied, not correcting her assumption. Sarah's gaze swept the area, the wariness of prey sensing nearby predators. "We don't have much time. They're watching me." "Who's Sarah? Who's working with Robert?" She shook her head, frustration evident in her tight expression. "I don't know their names. Former intelligence operatives. Mercenaries. Robert met them through some dark web forum where he's been posting about you for years." Her voice trembled slightly. "He thought they were helping him expose the truth about Dad's death, but they're using him for something else." "What do they want?" Richard asked, maintaining a calm exterior despite the growing tension. Sarah moved closer, lowering her voice. "They're after something called Project Helix. They think you have it or know where it is." Richard's expression remained neutral, but Sam caught his slight pause, recognition hidden quickly. "I don't know what that is," he said, the skilled evasion of a lifetime businessman. Sarah's eyes flashed with sudden anger. "More lies, Richard." "Even now." She stepped back, hands trembling. "Dad discovered Project Helix 15 years ago. It's why he confronted you that night. It's why he died." The man in the gray tracksuit had stopped near a pretzel vendor, his attention fixed on Richard and Sarah while pretending to check his phone. "Movement on your six," Sam warned. "Second individual approaching from the east path." Richard casually shifted position, maintaining eye contact with Sarah. "Whatever you think you know about your father's death." "I know enough," Sarah cut in. "I found his journals after the funeral, the ones he kept in the lake house safe." Her voice hardened. "He documented everything, Richard. Your late-night meetings with officials from Dresden Pharmaceuticals, the classified data you shared with them, the unauthorized human trials." Sam tensed, processing this new information. Pharmaceutical trials, classified data. The pieces were aligning into a troubling pattern. "Your contact is moving," she warned. "Tracksuit guy has something in his hand. Possible weapon, 30 seconds. Well, Richard reached for Sarah's arm. "We need to go. Now." Sarah pulled back. "I'm not going anywhere with you. I just came to warn you Robert is planning something tonight. Something final." Her eyes, so similar to her father's, filled with conflicted emotion. "Despite everything, I don't want more death." "If you know about Project Helix, you're already in danger," Richard insisted. "Let me protect you." A bitter laugh escaped her. "Protect me like you protected my father." The man in the tracksuit was now 20 yards away, his path angling directly toward them. The second individual, a woman with close-cropped hair and tactical sunglasses, had reached the boathouse steps. 10 seconds, Sam warned, already moving from her position. "Richard, extract now." Sarah noticed Richard's attention shift, her own survival instincts kicking in. She glanced behind her, spotting the approaching threats. "They found us," she whispered, fear replacing anger. Richard took her arm more firmly this time. "Stay with me. Walk normally toward the east exit." As they began moving, the man in the tracksuit accelerated his approach. The object in his hand, now clearly visible, a hypodermic injector designed for quick, silent application. "Now," Sam directed through the earpiece. Richard suddenly pulled Sarah behind a large oak tree as the morning stillness shattered. The pretzel vendor's cart overturned with a crash, drawing all attention as Sam sprinted from her position, intercepting the tracksuit man with practiced precision. Her strike was economical, targeted a sharp blow to the brachial plexus, followed by a leg sweep that dropped the man to the ground. The injector skittered across the pavement. The second operative reacted instantly, abandoning subtlety for direct action. Her hand emerged from her jacket with a compact pistol suppressor already attached. "Gun!" Sam shouted, diving behind a concrete planter as the first silenced shot struck where she had stood moments before. Panicked parkgoers scattered screams filling the morning air. Sarah froze in shock before Richard dragged her toward the boathouse interior. "Stay low," he ordered, his voice carrying the calm authority of a man accustomed to crisis. Sam rolled from her position to cover behind a tree, calculating angles and opportunities. The fallen operative was recovering, reaching inside his jacket. The woman with the gun was advancing, her movements betraying professional training. "Richard East service door," Sam directed through the comm. "Emergency extraction plan, Charlie." "Understood," came the terse reply. Sam needed to create distance to draw attention away from Richard and Sarah. She grabbed a fallen branch and hurled it toward the lake, the splash drawing a reflexive shot from the female operative. Using the distraction, Sam sprinted toward the boathouse from the opposite direction, deliberately making herself the primary target. The male operative had regained his feet now, wielding a blade rather than the injector. His face was cold, professional, devoid of emotion as he moved to intercept her. Sam recognized the stance, the positioning, Spetsnaz-trained, Russian Special Forces methodology. Their engagement was brief, brutal, and silent. Attack, a counterstrike. A deadly dance of two professionals, each movement calculated for maximum efficiency. Sam blocked a slashing attack, absorbed a kick to her thigh, and countered with a precise strike to her opponent's throat. Not enough to kill, but sufficient to create a critical opening. As he staggered back, gasping, Sam delivered the incapacitating blow, a surgical strike to the temple that dropped him unconscious. The female operative had circled around, seeking a clear shot. Sam grabbed the fallen man's blade and threw it with practiced accuracy, not aiming to kill, but to disrupt. The knife struck the woman's shoulder, throwing off her aim as she fired. The bullet splintered wood inches from Sam's head. Inside the boathouse, Richard guided Sarah through the service area past startled employees preparing for the day's operations. "Who are these people?" Sarah demanded, her voice tight with fear and confusion. "Later," Richard replied tersely, pushing open the emergency exit that led to the park's maintenance road. As planned, a black SUV was already waiting, engine running. The driver's window lowered, revealing Charles Prescott at the wheel. "Get in." Quickly, Richard opened the rear door, ushering Sarah inside before glancing back toward the boathouse. "Wait for Reed," he instructed Charles. "She said to extract you immediately if contact turned hostile." Charles reminded him, tension evident in his usually composed demeanor. Those were her explicit instructions. Richard hesitated, his instinct to wait warring with tactical necessity. Sarah tugged at his sleeve. "Richard, please. They'll kill us." The sound of another silenced shot from within the boathouse made the decision for him. Richard climbed into the SUV, closing the door as Charles accelerated away from the scene. "Extraction complete," Charles reported through the communication system. "Reed, what's your status?" No response came through the earpiece, only static. Inside the boathouse, Sam had taken cover behind the rental counter as the female operative advanced, weapon raised. Blood seeped from the woman's shoulder where the knife had struck, but her movements remained controlled, professional. Another agency-trained operative, possibly former CIA given her tactical approach. The morning sun streamed through the boathouse windows, creating alternating patterns of light and shadow. Sam used these to her advantage, staying in the shadows as she moved silently along the perimeter. "I know you're here, Istanbul," the woman called, her voice carrying a faint Eastern European accent. "We have unfinished business." The name Istanbul confirmed Sam's suspicions. This wasn't about Richard or Project Helix. Not entirely. This was also about her past, about Istanbul, about the mission that had ended her career. "Who are you working for?" Sam called, deliberately pitching her voice to echo, masking her position. The woman smiled coldly. "Old friends who remember you fondly." She fired again, the bullet splintering wood near Sam's previous position. But Sam had already moved, circling behind her adversary. "Alexei Volkov sends his regards." The woman added her words calculated to shock. And they did. Alexei Volkov, Sam's team leader in Istanbul, the man officially listed as killed in the ambush, the presumed traitor who had sold out the team. "Volkov is dead," Sam replied, using the momentary advantage of the woman's attempt to locate her voice. The woman laughed, a sound devoid of warmth. "Convenient narratives for convenient scapegoats. You of all people should understand that." Sam had reached a position directly behind her opponent, concealed by a stack of canoe paddles and life vests. The comm unit in her ear remained silent. Richard and Sarah were clear, the extraction successful. Her own escape was now the priority. "What does Project Helix have to do with Istanbul?" Sam asked, buying time as she assessed options. "Everything," the woman replied, slowly turning, sensing Sam's position. "All threads in the same tapestry. Blackwell, Manning, Volkov, you." Her finger tightened on the trigger. "A tapestry we're about to burn." Sam made her move, launching a heavy life vest at the woman's head before diving across the counter. The distraction worked, the shot went wide. Sam closed the distance before the operative could adjust, driving her shoulder into the woman's midsection. They crashed into a display of boating equipment, the guns skittering across the wooden floor. What followed was close-quarters combat at its most primal. No weapons, no distance, just technique and will. The woman was good agency trained, experienced, determined. But Sam had survived Istanbul, had spent years honing her skills even in self-imposed exile. The fight was brief but violent. A knee to the solar plexus, an elbow to the temple, a precision strike to the brachial nerve cluster. The operative collapsed, consciousness fleeing. Sam retrieved the woman's weapon and her own fallen comm unit, which had been damaged in the struggle. Through the boathouse windows, she could see police vehicles approaching, their sirens now audible. Time to disappear. She slipped out the West Service entrance, blending into the growing crowd of onlookers as first responders arrived. The practiced invisibility of a trained operative serving her once more. 3 blocks from the park, Sam discarded the damaged comm unit and acquired a burner phone from a convenience store. She dialed the emergency contact number established with Richard. "It's Reed," she said when Charles answered. "Extraction successful. Rendezvous at Location Bravo in 30 minutes. Location Bravo, a safe house in Greenwich Village that Richard had placed at her disposal. Off the books, known only to the 3 of them. "Understood," Charles replied, his tone betraying relief. "Principals secure, no pursuit detected." Sam ended the call, her mind processing the morning's revelations. Alexei Volkov alive. Project Helix. James Manning's journals documenting Richard's involvement with Dresden Pharmaceuticals. The threads were connecting, forming a picture darker than she had anticipated. The Metropolitan Museum of Art was transformed for the Blackwell Foundation Gala. The grand hall blazed with crystal chandeliers, their light reflecting off marble floors where New York's elite mingled in evening finery. Security was heightened, but discreet, dark-suited professionals stationed at strategic points, earpieces barely visible. Sam moved through this rarefied atmosphere with practiced ease, her burgundy evening gown selected for both elegance and mobility. Her hair was swept up in a sophisticated style that concealed a ceramic blade hairpin. Every aspect of her appearance crafted to blend seamlessly with Manhattan's wealthy social circles while maintaining operational readiness. "East entrance secure," she murmured into her champagne glass, the crystal rim concealing her words from lip readers. The communication system they'd established was minimal, but effective, a closed network connecting Sam, Richard, Charles, and the 3 former Special Forces operatives Sam had recruited from her past life, people she trusted implicitly. "West Gallery clear," came the response in her discreet earpiece. No sign of target. Richard stood near the main exhibition, playing the role of gracious host while scanning the crowd with practiced subtlety. At 58, in his perfectly tailored tuxedo, he looked every inch the billionaire philanthropist. Only someone who knew him well would notice the tension in his shoulders, the heightened alertness in his steel blue eyes. Their plan was risky but calculated. Richard as visible bait, Sam and her team providing invisible security, the Metropolitan Police and museum security unaware of the true nature of the threat, believing only that there had been a non-specific security concern. Sarah Manning was securely hidden at another location, the data drive containing her father's Project Helix files with her. Charles had remained to protect her, armed and vigilant. Movement at Northeast Service entrance. Came a terse update in Sam's earpiece. 2 individuals. Professional stance. Possible hostiles. Sam adjusted her position, moving casually toward the grand staircase that offered a better vantage point of the northeast corner. Through the crowd, she caught Richard's eye momentarily. He gave an almost imperceptible nod, acknowledging the developing situation. The gala continued around them, oblivious to the deadly game unfolding in their midst. Champagne flowed. Laughter echoed beneath the vaulted ceilings. Wealthy donors discussed art acquisitions and summer homes, while a team of professional killers infiltrated their celebration. Sam reached the staircase, ascending with graceful steps that betrayed nothing of her internal alertness. From her new position, she scanned the service entrance area, identifying the 2 figures who had triggered the warning. They wore staff uniforms, catering company credentials, but their body language screamed combatant to her trained eye. 2 confirmed hostiles, northeast quadrant, she reported quietly, moving to intercept. Wait, Richard's voice came through her earpiece. Main entrance, look at the new arrival. Sam shifted her gaze to the grand entrance where guests were still arriving. A tall man in his early 40s had just entered, handing his invitation to the check-in staff. Dark hair threaded with premature gray, strong features hardened by years of anger, eyes scanning the room with barely disguised intensity. Robert Manning, Sam breathed, recognizing him from the intelligence files. He came himself. This changed everything. Their plan had anticipated Robert working through proxies, professional operatives like those at the boathouse. His personal appearance suggested either supreme confidence or desperate recklessness. Maintain positions, Richard instructed through the communication system. I'll make contact. Negative, Sam responded immediately. Too exposed. But Richard was already moving across the grand hall, weaving through clusters of guests with determined strides. Whatever his faults, Richard Blackwell did not lack courage. Sam descended the stairs rapidly, maintaining visual contact with both Richard and the 2 disguised operatives near the service entrance. The situation was deteriorating rapidly, multiple threats converging with hundreds of civilians in the potential crossfire. Richard reached Robert Manning just as the younger man spotted him. Their eyes locked across the last few yards of marble floor, 15 years of hatred and guilt condensed into a single moment of recognition. Robert, Richard said, his voice carrying just enough to reach Sam's enhanced audio receiver. I've been expecting you. Robert Manning's face twisted with a complex mixture of emotions, hatred, vindication, and something deeper. Something almost like grief. It ends tonight, Richard, he replied, his voice tight with suppressed rage. Everything ends tonight. Not here. Richard gestured toward a side gallery. Too many innocent people. Whatever you've planned, whatever you believe I deserve, these people are not part of it. Robert's laugh was bitter. Concern for collateral damage. That's rich coming from you. But he followed as Richard led them toward the less crowded Egyptian wing. Sam paralleled their movement, maintaining distance while keeping both men in visual range. Her attention remained split between this confrontation and the 2 operatives who had now separated, one following Richard and Robert, the other moving toward the museum's security control room. Northeast hostile moving to security center, she reported, likely attempting to disable systems. Intercepting, came the terse reply from one of her team members. Sam continued tracking Richard and Robert as they entered the relatively empty gallery of Egyptian artifacts. Ancient sarcophagi and stone tablets surrounded them, silent witnesses to a modern confrontation with roots deep in the past. You're being used, Robert, Richard said once they were alone. The operatives you've aligned with have their own agenda. This isn't about justice for your father anymore. Robert's expression remained hard. Save the manipulation, Richard. I know exactly what I'm doing. His hand slipped inside his jacket. And I know exactly what Project Helix is. Richard's posture shifted subtly, preparation for potential violence. Then you know this goes beyond corporate rivalry, beyond your father's death. People will die if those protocols are activated. People already died, Robert snapped. My father died because he discovered what you and Dresden Pharmaceuticals were doing. Human experimentation, genetic manipulation without consent or oversight. From her position at the gallery entrance, Sam detected movement in her peripheral vision. A third operative had appeared approaching from a maintenance corridor. The tactical situation was deteriorating rapidly. Richard, she warned through the comm system. Additional hostile, you're 3 o'clock, 40 feet in closing. Richard gave no indication he had heard, maintaining complete focus on Robert. Your father was my friend, the best man I ever knew. His death haunts me every day. Spare me your convenient remorse, Robert snarled, fully withdrawing his hand from his jacket. But instead of a weapon, he held a small recording device. I don't want your death, Richard. I want your confession. Live streamed to every news outlet in the country. The revelation startled Sam. Robert's plan wasn't assassination, it was public humiliation, the destruction of Richard Blackwell's legacy and reputation. Security systems compromised, came an urgent update in Sam's earpiece. Cameras disabled in the Egyptian wing. Northeast hostile and neutralized, but second team confirmed entering through loading dock. 4 additional hostiles. Sam made a split-second decision. Execute Protocol Omega. Evacuate all civilians. Now. Throughout the museum, fire alarms suddenly blared. The automated announcement system directed guests toward emergency exits. Planned chaos, disruptive but controlled, allowing for civilian evacuation while maintaining operational awareness of the hostiles. Richard used the momentary distraction to close the distance to Robert. Your father knew about Project Helix because I told him, he said, his voice low but intense. I wanted his help to stop it, to expose it safely without innocent people dying when Dresden's clients came looking for their investment. Robert faltered, confusion crossing his face. You're lying. The journals were incomplete. James documented everything except our final conversation. Richard's expression reflected 15 years of suppressed pain. I was going to testify. We both were. A controlled exposure through proper channels. The approaching operative had reached the gallery entrance, weapon now visible in his hand. Sam moved to intercept her evening gown, suddenly less restrictive as she tore away the detachable lower portion, revealing tactical pants beneath. The elegant facade giving way to operational necessity. Richard, drop, she shouted, launching herself at the armed man. The gallery erupted into violence. The operative fired his shot, going wide as Sam collided with him. Richard tackled Robert to the floor, shielding the younger man with his body as ancient artifacts shattered around them. Sam grappled with the operative, their struggle brutal and efficient, 2 professionals fighting with lethal intent. She blocked his attempt to bring the weapon to bear, forcing his arm wide as the silenced pistol discharged again, the bullet embedding in a stone column. A sharp blow to her kidney sent pain lancing through her side. Sam absorbed it, using the man's momentum to slam him against a display case. Glass shattered, raining down on both of them as they continued their deadly dance. Across the gallery, Richard had pulled Robert behind a massive sarcophagus, providing cover from the ongoing fight and potential additional hostile. Listen to me, Richard urged, his voice intense with desperate sincerity. Your father didn't die in an accident. He was murdered by the same people who are using you now. Robert's face reflected shock, then renewed anger. More lies. The evidence is on the servers Sarah accessed, Richard pressed on. James had discovered that Dresden's testing went beyond enhancement. They were developing control protocols, the ability to override free will in enhanced subjects. The revelation hit Robert like a physical blow. Mind control, that's why they killed him. Why they've spent 15 years systematically eliminating everyone who knew the truth. Richard's eyes bore into Robert's. I couldn't prove it. Couldn't expose them without evidence. So I did the only thing I could. I spent 15 years acquiring every piece of West Ridge manufacturing to finally access those secured servers. To get the proof James had hidden. Near the entrance, Sam had gained the upper hand in her struggle, delivering a precise strike to her opponent's carotid artery that sent him slumping to unconsciousness. She retrieved his weapon, spinning toward the gallery interior just as the main doors burst open. 4 figures entered in tactical formation, professional, coordinated, lethal. At their center walked a man Sam recognized instantly despite the 15 years since she'd last seen him. Older, his once blonde hair now silver, a new scar tracking down the left side of his face, but unmistakable. Alexei Volkov, the ghost from Istanbul, the man who had supposedly died in that bloody ambush, the alleged traitor who had sold out their team. Sam, he acknowledged with a cold smile, you look well for someone who should have died in Turkey. Sam kept her weapon trained on him, mind racing through tactical options. 4 armed hostiles plus Volkov. Richard and Robert in exposed positions. Museum security compromised. Her team engaged with other threats throughout the building. Funny, well, she replied, maintaining outward calm. I was thinking the same about you. Volkov gestured casually toward Richard and Robert. Mr. Blackwell, Mr. Manning, how convenient to find you both here. Saves us considerable effort. Richard slowly stood positioning himself in front of Robert. Alexei Volkov, Dresden Pharmaceuticals cleanup specialist. I wondered when you'd finally show yourself. The revelation connected the final pieces for Sam. Volkov hadn't betrayed their CIA team in Istanbul. He'd been working for Dresden all along. The high-value asset they'd been sent to extract must have had information about Project Helix, information Volkov couldn't allow to reach American intelligence. You've been quite persistent, Blackwell, Volkov replied with cold admiration. 15 years of meticulous acquisition just to access James Manning's secured servers. He shook his head. Unfortunately, that persistence has become problematic for my employers. Dresden Pharmaceuticals no longer exists, Richard countered. Who exactly are you working for now? Dresden was merely a shell. The real work continued under different names, different corporations. Volkov's smile was chilling. Project Helix evolved into something far more sophisticated, something worth protecting at any cost. Sam maintained her position, weapon steady, awaiting an opening. Her earpiece remained silent. Communications had been compromised. She was on her own. It won't work, Richard said, his voice carrying calm certainty. Sarah has the server data, multiple copies distributed to secure locations. If anything happens to any of us, that information goes public instantly. For the first time, uncertainty flickered across Volkov's face. Sarah Manning is secure in our custody. Is she trying? Richard's smile held grim satisfaction. Check again. The tactical calculation was visible in Volkov's eyes, assessing truth from bluff, recalculating all odds and options. It doesn't matter, he decided finally. The protocols are already active. Thousands of implants worldwide ready to receive the activation signal. His gaze hardened. The next evolution of human development will not be stopped by corporate ethics or outdated morality. Or by witnesses, Sam added, understanding blooming with terrible clarity. That's why you're here. Not just for Richard and Robert, but to eliminate everyone who knows about Project Helix, including me. Volkov nodded, almost respectful. Always quick, Samantha. It's why you survived Istanbul when the others didn't. His expression cooled. But everyone's luck eventually runs out. He gestured to his team. Secure them. The fire alarm provides perfect cover, 3 more bodies in a tragic accident. The tactical team advanced in practice formation. Sam knew her odds 1 against 4 with Volkov himself likely armed and dangerous, not survivable by conventional metrics. But Sam Reed had survived Istanbul, had rebuilt her life from ashes, had found purpose again in protecting others. She would not go quietly. As the first operative came within range, Sam acted. A thrown knife, the hairpin from her upswept style, struck with precision, finding the gap between tactical vest segments. The man staggered his weapon, discharging harmlessly into the floor. The momentary distraction was all Richard needed. With surprising speed for a man his age, he lunged at Robert, shoving him toward the emergency exit while drawing the concealed weapon Sam had insisted he carry. Go, he shouted. Find Sarah. Chaos erupted. Gunfire echoed through the ancient gallery. Sam dove for cover behind a stone column as bullets chipped marble around her. Richard fired back, providing covering fire as Robert hesitated at the exit. Richard, Robert called, torn between escape and the sudden, unexpected alliance. Tell Sarah I'm sorry, Richard replied, his voice carrying a finality that sent ice through Sam's veins. Tell her I finally did the right thing. With that, Richard Blackwell, billionaire CEO and complicated man, did something unexpected, something selfless, something heroic. He charged directly at Volkov. The Russian operative raised his weapon, firing twice. Richard staggered but didn't follow the momentum of his charge, carrying him forward. They collided, crashing into an ancient Egyptian display, artifacts and bodies tangled in a chaotic mass. Sam used the distraction, firing with precision at the remaining operatives. One fell immediately. Another returned fire, forcing her back into cover. The third moved to assist Volkov, who was struggling with Richard in a deadly embrace. "Sam!" Richard's voice called out, strained with effort and pain. "The watch, use the watch." For a moment, Sam didn't understand. Then clarity struck. The Patek Philippe, the family heirloom that Richard constantly touched. It wasn't merely a watch, it was a storage device. A sophisticated data carrier disguised as a luxury timepiece. Backup insurance. Another copy of the Project Helix data. Sam fired again, dropping the second operative with a clean shot. The third had reached Volkov and Richard, attempting to separate them. Through the melee, Sam could see blood spreading across Richard's white shirt, the bullet wounds taking their toll. Making her decision, Sam broke from cover, moving in a combat pattern unpredictable to the remaining threats. Her first shot struck the third operative in the shoulder, spinning him away from Richard. Her second narrowly missed Volkov as he finally extracted himself from Richard's weakening grip. "It's over, Volkov," Sam shouted, closing the distance. "Federal agents are securing the building as we speak." A calculated bluff, but necessary. Volkov assessed the situation with cold professionalism. Two operatives down, one wounded, his primary target bleeding out, but still conscious. New variables requiring new calculations. Another day, perhaps. He decided, backing toward a service door while using his wounded operative as a shield. Sam maintained her aim, but didn't fire. The risk to civilians beyond that door was too great without confirmed containment. "This isn't finished," Volkov promised, before disappearing through the exit, dragging his wounded man with him. The moment they were gone, Sam rushed to Richard's side. The damage was extensive, 2 gunshot wounds to the torso, blood pooling beneath him on the museum floor. His breathing was labored, each intake causing a grimace of pain. "Richard," Sam pressed her hands against the wounds, attempting to slow the bleeding. "Stay with me, medics are coming." Another necessary lie. Richard's hand moved weakly to his wrist, fumbling with the clasp of his watch. "Take it," he managed, his voice barely above a whisper. "Everything's there. Everything James found. Everything I've gathered since." His eyes, growing dimmer by the second, held hers with desperate intensity. "Make it right, Sam. Finish what James started." With trembling fingers, Sam removed the watch, securing it in her pocket. "I will. I promise." A ghost of a smile touched Richard's pale lips. "I told Sarah once that James was the best man I ever knew." Blood bubbled at the corner of his mouth, his voice weakening. "I spent 15 years trying to be worthy of his friendship. Tell her I tried." His eyes drifted closed, his breathing increasingly shallow. "Richard," Sam urged, applying more pressure to the wounds. "Stay awake. Robert needs to hear the truth from you. Sarah needs to hear it." But Richard Blackwell had paid his final debt. With a soft exhalation, the tension left his body. The predatory grace that had defined him in life giving way to the stillness of death. Sam remained beside him for a moment, honoring the complicated man who had sought redemption in his final acts. Then professionalism reasserted itself. She needed to move, to secure the watch, to find Robert and Sarah, to stop Volkov and whatever remained of Project Helix. The wail of approaching sirens penetrated the museum walls. Emergency responders arriving for what they believed was a fire alarm evacuation. They would find much more. Sam rose, retrieving her weapon and moving toward the exit Robert had used. The mission had changed, but its importance had only increased. Richard Blackwell was dead, but his final gift, the data that could expose Project Helix, might save countless lives. If she could keep it safe, if she could survive long enough to use it. 6 months later, a different Sarah Manning stood at a podium in the headquarters of the newly established James Manning Foundation for Ethical Technology. Behind her, a portrait of her father smiled down at the assembled press and dignitaries. Beside it hung a smaller photograph of Richard Blackwell. "My father believed that technology should serve humanity, not control it." Sarah spoke, her voice steady and confident. 15 years ago, he gave his life defending that principle. And 6 months ago, Richard Blackwell did the same. In the back of the room, Samantha Reed watched from the shadows, her hair now shorter, her appearance subtly altered. Beside her stood Robert Manning, his face bearing the gravity of a man who had confronted difficult truths and emerged transformed. The evidence they preserved at the cost of their lives has led to 63 arrests across 12 countries, Sarah continued. Corporate executives, government officials, and mercenaries who conspired to develop technology that could override human free will. Technology that could have ended freedom as we know it. Sam's hand unconsciously moved to her pocket where the Patek Philippe now rested. Richard's final gift had contained more than just Project Helix data. It had also held evidence clearing her name in the Istanbul incident, proof that Alexei Volkov had orchestrated the ambush that killed her team. The FBI had quietly reopened the case, exonerating her and identifying Volkov as the true traitor. Her name was clear, her professional reputation restored should she ever wish to return to that life. The James Manning Foundation will continue the work my father and Richard began, Sarah was saying, ensuring that technological advancement remains ethical, transparent, and firmly under human control. Her eyes found Sam's in the crowd, a moment of silent acknowledgement passing between them. And we will remain vigilant against those who would use innovation as a path to power. Alexei Volkov remained at large, one of the few conspirators to escape the international dragnet that had followed the exposure of Project Helix. Sam knew he was out there planning waiting. Their confrontation was merely postponed, not avoided. But that was a concern for another day. Today was about honoring the past while securing the future, about transforming tragedy into purpose. As the presentation concluded and the crowd began to disperse, Robert approached Sam. The FBI liaison called. They've traced financial transactions linked to Volkov, Switzerland, and then Malaysia. Sam nodded, unsurprised. He's rebuilding his network, starting over. Will he come after us again? Robert asked, his expression troubled. After Sarah? Eventually, Sam replied honestly. People like Volkov don't abandon lifelong missions easily. She met his gaze directly. But we'll be ready when he does. Robert studied her with newfound respect. The anger that had defined him for 15 years had transformed into something more constructive. Determination, purpose, resolve. Sarah wants you to stay on as security director. Permanently. Sam glanced across the room where Sarah was speaking with government officials. And you? I think my father and Richard would both approve, Robert said quietly. Someone with your skills, your experience, your integrity. We need you, Sam. The words touched something Sam had thought long buried. The need to belong, to serve a purpose greater than survival, to use her skills for protection rather than elimination. I'll consider it, she said finally. As they walked toward the reception area, Sam's phone vibrated with a message from an encrypted number she recognized. An old contact from her agency days, now working with the FBI task force tracking Project Helix conspirators. The message was brief but significant. Istanbul team member Jenkins alive, wants to meet, says he knows where Volkov is hiding. Sam stared at the screen, possibilities and implications cascading through her mind. Another thread from her past emerging into the present. Another piece of the puzzle that connected her life to the Mannings, to Richard Blackwell, to Project Helix. The story wasn't over. Perhaps it never would be. But for the first time in years, Sam Reed looked toward the future with something approaching hope. Not merely surviving, but living. Not merely hiding, but building. Her thumb traced the face of Richard's watch, now her watch, an unconscious gesture she'd adopted in recent months. The timepiece had become her own talisman, a reminder of promises made and kept, of redemption possible even after a lifetime of mistakes, of the thin, crucial line between past and future, between secrets and truth, between isolation and connection. The line they all walked every day, the line that defined them, the line between.